The storm had starved the land for days, leaving only silence and fear inside Martha's home. A widow with 3 children, 7 potatoes, and no hope of tomorrow. Until a knock shattered the night. Who was the stranger at her door? A threat or salvation? That night, one decision would change their family forever. Before we dive into this unforgettable story, don't forget to hit like if you enjoy heartwarming tales, subscribe for more inspiring true-to-life stories, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of courage and kindness. The storm had raged for 3 endless days, hammering the valley with snow and wind so fierce it sounded like wolves clawing at the walls. Inside a small cabin, Martha Coleman pressed her forehead against the frost-covered window. Her breath fogged the glass as she counted the last potatoes in the cellar. 7. Just 7. Enough for 1 more meal, maybe 2 if she stretched it thin. The knock echoed through the cabin like thunder. Martha froze, her hand instinctively reaching for the rifle mounted above the mantel. No one traveled in weather like this, unless they were desperate or dangerous. "Stay back," Samuel whispered, stepping in front of his sisters. His jaw was tight, his small frame stiff with courage he shouldn't have had to carry. Mary's wide eyes flicked to the door, while little Beth clutched her doll tighter, sensing her mother's fear. Then came the voice, deep, weathered, unfamiliar. "Mrs. Coleman, my name's Jacob Hartwell. I run the ranch 10 miles east. My horse threw a shoe. I'm asking for shelter, just for the night." Martha's pulse quickened. She knew the name Hartwell was no drifter. He owned one of the largest spreads in the territory, a man both respected and feared. But what was he doing here, at her door, knowing her name, in the middle of a storm? Her hand hovered on the latch. 7 potatoes, 3 children, 1 night. She studied the shadow outside. Tall, broad-shouldered, steam rising from his coat. Opening the door felt like stepping across an invisible line she couldn't see. But Martha turned the latch. Her husband, Thomas, had been gone for months, taken by consumption. Since then, Martha had carried the full weight of survival on her shoulders. Her eldest, Samuel, barely 12, had grown quiet and protective, stepping into a role no child should bear. 9-year-old Mary learned to hush her hunger, while little Beth clung to a ragged corn-husk doll as if it could keep the cold away. Martha had seen her children's faces change, less laughter, more hollow stares. The silence of hunger was worse than any storm outside, yet she refused to break. Every night she told herself one thing: they will survive. And then came the knock, a sound so sharp in the quiet that her heart seized. Who could be out there in such a storm? Snow clung to his coat as Jacob Hartwell stepped inside, removing his hat with a respectful nod. He was older than Martha expected, graying hair, deep lines etched by years of sun and storms, but his eyes carried something unexpected: gratitude. "The children," Martha said firmly, her tone sharp with warning. "This is Mr. Hartwell. He'll be staying just tonight." He nodded to each of them by name: Samuel, Mary, Beth. The fact that he knew their names chilled Martha, until he explained softly, "Your husband worked my north pasture for 2 seasons. Spoke of you often. A good man." "I was sorry to hear." Silence hung thick, grief pressing in from all sides. Finally, Martha broke it. "I was fixing supper, potato soup. Nothing fancy." Hartwell glanced at the tiny pile of potatoes, and for a moment his jaw tightened. Then, without a word, he unpacked his own coat, a pouch of coins, a bottle of whiskey, and wrapped in oiled cloth-dried beef and cornmeal. Martha's hands stilled. Food, enough to stretch for weeks. Hartwell's voice cut through the hush with quiet authority. "No one's leaving hungry tonight. Not on my watch." For the first time in months, Martha's children went to bed with full bellies. The fire glowed warmly, and the storm outside seemed far away. But just as Martha began to believe in a moment of peace, The sound came, hoofbeats, at first faint, then growing louder, pounding against the frozen earth. Martha stiffened. No one rode in such weather, unless they carried purpose and danger. Hartwell was on his feet instantly, his hand resting on the revolver at his side. He moved to the window, his jaw set. 5 men, he muttered, armed. A voice rang through the storm. Jacob Hartwell. We know you're in there. Come out peaceful, and nobody gets hurt. Martha's blood ran cold. She looked at Hartwell. His expression was unreadable, but there was no fear, only calculation. They've got a grudge, he explained quietly. I fired their foreman last week for stealing cattle. Looks like he brought friends. The men outside jeered, their laughter harsh against the night. You cost us our livelihood, Hartwell. Time to settle accounts. Upstairs, Samuel appeared on the stairs, Mary peeking from behind him, wide-eyed with fear. Martha's heart clenched. Her children were now caught in someone else's war. The men outside cocked their rifles. Time was running thin. Martha's hands trembled as she reached for Thomas's old rifle above the mantel. Months of grief hardened into resolve. She would not let her home become a battlefield. Not tonight. Not with her children upstairs. Mrs. Coleman, Hartwell said softly, almost pleading, I need you to trust me. But Martha had lived too long on trust that brought only loss. Instead, she stepped onto the porch, the rifle cradled but not raised. Snow swirled around her as 5 armed men shifted in their saddles, surprised by the sight of one determined widow. You're trespassing on my land, she called. Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. Hartwell is my guest. He's under my protection. The leader sneered. Lady, you're one woman with 3 kids and an old gun. What protection is that? Martha didn't flinch. The kind that knows every man in 3 counties came to my husband's funeral. The kind the sheriff himself calls family. Harm us, and there'll be nowhere you can run far enough. Silence. Then, slowly, one by one, the riders turned and disappeared into the storm. That night, courage fed her children as surely as food ever had. And from that night on, they were no longer just a widow and a stranger. They were family.